Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Mari. I'm one of the librarians at Portland Public Library in Portland, Maine, and I'm here today to read another picture book biography to celebrate Black History Month. The picture book biography we're going to read today is of Shirley Chisholm. It says, "She was the first." Now, do you recognize this building behind her? If you do, that's great, and if you don't, I think you will by the end of the book. So rather than talk too much about who she was, let's go ahead and read, and then we can talk about it after. It's called She Was the First, The Trailblazing Life of Shirley Chisholm. This book is written by Katheryn Russell-Brown and illustrated by Eric Velasquez. This book is also published by Lee and Low Books. You can see Shirley Chisholm right here. On a cold November day in 1924, Shirley Anita St. Hill came into this world. Back then, nobody had an inkling that she would open a door to history. Shirley, the oldest of the St. Hill girls, was a handful for Mother and Papa. From the time she was little, Shirley liked to be in charge. At 3, she was already leading children twice her age around the neighborhood, telling them where to go and which games to play. "Listen to me," Shirley said, and they did. The St. Hill family lived in Brooklyn, New York. Papa was a baker's helper and Mother was a seamstress and a domestic worker. They barely earned enough money to keep food in the cupboards and supper on the table. Mother and Papa made a tough decision. They would send the girls to live with Mother's family on the Caribbean island of Barbados. While the children were away, Papa and Mother would save their money, and Shirley and her sisters would get a taste of country living. In 1928, Shirley, her sisters, and Mother boarded an ocean liner named the Vulcania. After 9 rocky days at sea, they arrived in Barbados. From the port, they rode a rickety bus to Grandmother Emmeline's farm. Shirley spotted her grandmother right away. The thin West Indian woman stood as tall as a reed, and she looked like serious business. Island life was nothing like city living. The days were as hot as an oven, and every night Shirley heard an animal concert of chirps, clucks, and moos. Her new home also had something that Shirley had never seen, an outhouse. Mother stayed for a few months to make sure that the girls were settled. Then she had to go back to Brooklyn to help Papa. The day Mother left, everyone's face was wet with tears. Grandmother Emmeline's house was stocked with love, rules, and chores. Fetch the well water, feed the animals, graze the cows. When they finished, Shirley, her sisters, and her cousins enjoyed a special treat. They raced to the beach, ran through the sand, and jumped into the clear blue water. To Shirley, the ocean felt like warm magic. The local school was a one-room building with more than 100 children from ages 4 to 11. The teachers were strict and punished students who did not behave. Shirley was a fast learner. She could read and write before she turned 5. Barbados was filled with people with brown skin like Shirley's. She saw teachers, preachers, and shopkeepers taking care of island business. Seeing them, Shirley understood that when she grew up, she could take charge and get things done, too. 7 years went by. Mother and Papa were still struggling to earn money. The Great Depression of the 1930s made it hard for them to find steady jobs. But no matter, Mother wanted her girls back home. In 1934, the year Shirley turned 10, she and her sisters moved back to Brooklyn into a different life. The city was crowded with automobiles, tall buildings, fast-moving people, and a confusing maze of streets. During the icicle-cold winters, Shirley shivered thinking about the warm Barbados sunshine. At her new school, Shirley got a sad surprise. Instead of starting in 6th grade, she was put back into 4th grade. The Shirley's schooling in Barbados had been excellent, but the teachers in Brooklyn said she didn't know enough U.S. history. Shirley was upset and embarrassed and bored. Sometimes when the teacher wasn't looking, Shirley threw spitballs and snapped rubber bands at the younger kids in her class. Once her teacher realized why Shirley misbehaved, the school gave her a tutor. In time, Shirley learned all the history she needed to catch up with her classmates. Education was important in the St. Hill home. The girls made regular trips to the library to borrow books. When holidays came, Shirley was sure to receive a book as a present. Every evening, the family dinner table came alive. Papa talked first. Shirley listened closely and asked questions as he discussed world events. Papa read 3 newspapers every day. He was full of information. When Papa's friends stopped by, Shirley stayed up late and listened through the bedroom door. The men talked for hours about world leaders and politics. Papa said that everybody should be treated the same. Poor, rich, black, white. Papa's words stirred something inside Shirley. She started paying more attention to current events. In high school, Shirley earned top grades and was accepted at several colleges. She chose Brooklyn College, just a subway ride away from home. The school was bigger than any she'd attended. There were so many students. Shirley loved her classes. Her brain buzzed with new information about other countries, foreign languages, and different cultures. She joined the Harriet Tubman Society, a club where she learned more about Black history. And nobody was surprised when Shirley signed up for the debate team. She could out-talk anybody. After her schoolwork was done, Shirley enjoyed going dancing and out to parties. Shirley wanted to use her education to make the country and world better for everyone. But how? Her favorite teacher, Professor Warsoff, knew that Shirley was a great debater. He suggested that she give politics a try. Shirley had doubt. She loved children, so she decided to be a school teacher instead of a politician. She would make a difference by helping children. After she finished college in 1946, Shirley had a hard time finding a job. Most of the doors were closed to her because she was black and she was a woman. Plus, she was very short. "Don't judge me by my size," Shirley insisted at an interview to be a nursery school teacher. "Give me a chance." Shirley got the job. During the day, Shirley worked with children. In the evenings, she worked with community groups. Shirley noticed that people with power and money didn't seem to care about folks who were poor. This bothered her. She remembered how it felt to be poor. So she spoke up and tried to make a difference for people who didn't have power or money. One time, Shirley encouraged the women in a local group to stand up to the men and demand respect. Another time, she noticed that the officials in charge of a meeting were ignoring everyone waiting in line to ask questions. Shirley rushed to the front and made sure that everyone was allowed to talk. In the middle of all this work, Shirley found love. In 1949, she married Conrad Chisholm, a private investigator. He was handsome and smart and crazy about Shirley. In the 1950s and 60s, Shirley joined many organizations. Some local leaders and politicians didn't like her ideas. They called her a troublemaker because she stood up for women and people of color. But the people who needed help were glad Shirley was on their side, fighting to make sure that they were treated fairly. By 1964, Shirley's heart told her it was time to step into politics. She had a gift. People listened when she talked. Her words motivated them into actions. Shirley decided to take a chance and run for the New York State Assembly. And she won. After Shirley became an assemblywoman, she worked to help the people of New York. She worked to pass laws to help sick people get the medicine they need. She worked to make sure that landlords kept the heat on in the winter. She worked to make sure that people could find jobs and raise pay for workers, including those who cleaned houses like her mother. She worked to help poor students pay for college. Shirley didn't say or do things just to be popular. She fought for what she believed was right, not what was easy. She followed Grandmother Emmeline's advice to always speak the truth. 4 years later, Shirley decided to run for the U.S. Congress. She promised to help people all across the country. Some of the men in Congress tried to keep Shirley out. They scolded her and said that women didn't belong in politics. One of her opponents called her a little school teacher. Many people said that they would never vote for a woman. Shirley dusted off the mean talk. She kept meeting with people and asking them to vote for her. Her campaign slogan was unbought and unbossed. Shirley's hard work paid off. In 1968, she was the first Black woman elected to Congress. In the House of Representatives, Shirley kept her promise. She worked for laws that helped women, children, students, poor people, farm workers, Native people, and others who were often pushed aside. She fought for health care. She spoke up for military veterans. She spoke out against war. While in Congress, Shirley gave many speeches, and people of every color and background liked her ideas for change. But Shirley wanted to take her message to an even bigger audience. So in 1972, she decided to seek the highest political office in the United States. Shirley was the first Black person, Democrat or Republican, to run for president. Shirley's campaign was full of ups and downs. Though many people helped her and followed the Chisholm Trail, their support wasn't enough. Shirley didn't win the nomination, but her hard work paved the way for the future, for the first Black president of the United States, and one day the first woman president. Shirley Anita St. Hill Chisholm opened a door to history. Here's an afterword talking a little bit more about her life and the things that she did. You can see here's like a picture of her with a Chisholm for President sign, and her with her husband, and with her when she was taking her oath to become a congresswoman. And here's her with Reverend Jesse Jackson and Barbara Lee, and you can see this beautiful painting of her in the entrance to a state park in Brooklyn, named after her. There's also quotation sources, photograph credits, and the author sources. Remember, most nonfiction books are going to have sources that tell you where they got the information from. So that was all about Shirley Chisholm. I thought that this was a great book because we have just been talking a lot about elections lately. I'm sure that you have too. Sorry, my camera almost fell over. And right now we have the first Black and Indian American female vice president, whose name is Kamala Harris. I think it would be really cool to have a Black person or a woman, or especially a Black woman, to be in these really high political offices, because those are voices that we haven't heard as much. And as you can tell from this book, a lot of them have really important things to say. Shirley Chisholm, she was the first. She was the first Black woman to be elected to, she was the first Black person to be the nominee for president, and she was the first Black woman elected to the U.S. Congress. I hope you enjoyed learning about Shirley Chisholm. Once again, my name is Sarah Mari. I'm one of the librarians at Portland Public Library in Portland, Maine. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye.